Hey, everybody. This is the Theotek podcast. I'm Kevin Purcell, one of the fine hosts. We're here with four of us tonight, and we're going to be talking to you about taking notes. That sounds like an exciting topic. It actually is kind of interesting, the different places and areas where you want to use your mobile technology or your computer or just a pad of paper and a pen or pencil. How do you take notes? What's the best way to do that? And so we're going to do that and discuss that tonight, as well as maybe get a little bit of an update from our intrepid traveler who went to Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics Show over the weekend. Antoine, we'll start with you. Antoine, welcome.
Call me.
I caught him.
Nice. Crab
That's
in
funny.
the mouth. I think there's nice crab dip going on right now, and that was perfect.
Good timing for me, right? All right. We'll get back to you. Rick is back with us. He joined us at the very end of the last show we did last week, traveling from you were with family down in Louisiana. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
It's good to be back for an entire show.
Kentucky, where they are playing basketball as we speak, and I'm sacrificing by not watching it.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know.
Yeah. And then Wes is with us. How are you, Wes?
I'm fine. Thanks, Kevin.
Good.
I'm in the land where none of our sports teams ever go to the playoffs.
Oh, man.
Ever.
Hey, they will return.
It's been a rough 4 or 5 years there, Antoine.
It does sound like it would be rough if I was an Eagles fan or well, you're on the other end of the state, so you don't root for the Steelers.
Oh,
No, that's a different universe.
Yeah, okay. Well, then I still like you because I don't root for the Steelers either. Anyway, we just saw the movie Concussion tonight. Have any of you seen that film?
I have
not. Support.
That shows how evil the Steelers are because they let all those men get hurt.
That's one with Will Smith, right?
Yeah.
Except it's not an action movie.
No. It's a very good movie, though. It's excellent. Especially if you're a football fan, you really ought to see it. Kind of gives you a new perspective on the game. Very one-sided, but still interesting. Anyway, it's not movie tech. It's Theotek. So we'll go jump in. And what we're talking about with our show topic tonight of note-taking, we were discussing this offline earlier tonight. Some of us, what do you use to take notes? And so, in the general situation, let's say you're going into a meeting or a classroom. I think that's sort of the same situation, isn't it? Wouldn't you?
I actually have two different workflows depending on whether or not I'm in a meeting or at a class.
Okay, well, you do both, right? So because you're taking a class, what is it? You're learning a language.
We're learning Portuguese.
That's amazing.
You have a Portuguese congregation.
The pastor of the Brazilian congregation is teaching about 10 of us Portuguese. I'm terrible at it, but I'm learning.
So what's the different workflow? I would, if I'm not a student anymore, but if I was in a classroom, I kind of think I would use the same tool for both meetings and classroom.
I just find my brain is doing different things. So if I'm in a class where I'm kind of processing data and I need to just kind of, when I write it down, things stick a little bit differently. When I'm typing or when I create something using a tool that's got kind of a structure already built in, my brain adjusts to it a little bit differently. So I can show you the two things. Let me share my screen here. They really changed a lot of stuff here. Going this way. Okay, let's bring up. So for my notes when I'm in a class, this is Notability. So this is what I use to write my notes down when I'm taking notes in Portuguese class. And the cool thing is that I also will take PDF snaps with one of the scanner apps.
Did you take those notes with an ink pen?
This was with my Apple Pencil. The reason why I have this up is because this is the first one where I had an Apple Pencil to take.
It looks like it was done with an ink pen, a blue, purple ink pen. Yeah,
I like blue ink. So
okay.
But the cool thing is that I can use the scanner app and I can throw in PDF. So if he gives a handout, I can just write in for that. And what I have.
And what was this? What was this again, Wes?
Notability. Notability's got
the
thing that I liked about it when I was first using it was that it had the zoom mode, where you could draw a box around and it would put your a big box down at the bottom, and so I could write here. My
Mhm.
handwriting's terrible. I'm left-handed. So that was the cool thing. But with the Apple Pencil, I don't need to do that anymore, because I can just write on it like it's a regular screen, and I really appreciate it. Back when I was using either a non-active stylus or just using my finger, so like for the first 4 classes for the Portuguese class, I was basically taking notes just writing with my finger. The zoom mode really comes in handy. One of the things I really like about Notability, and this probably is the thing that keeps me coming back to the app, is if I want to get rid of a stroke, I can just tap it and it gets rid of the whole stroke, everything that's attached to that.
Wait, that's something new. I use Notability, but I didn't know that. What do you do?
Well, it's just the eraser.
Oh,
So
it's on the eraser. Okay.
With most of the the writing apps, you can do like a scribble out. That doesn't always work. But if you go to the eraser tool, you can erase it, but it'll do it like pixel by pixel. This does it by stroke.
Most people have to go to the hospital to get rid of a stroke.
Yeah, that's really nicely done. Just gonna ignore that. But that's what I use for my notes when I'm in a class. So if I'm taking a class, if I'm sitting in a lecture, and it was really kind of cool. I was looking in my in some of my old notes going through. Let me see if I can find. This is a note from a keynote that I wrote with my finger in Notability. This is back in 2002. And so this is a keynote from an event that I went out to, and hear me taking my notes. So
Notability was it on the iPhone back then?
This was on my iPad too.
Oh, you said 2002, but you
No,
really
2012.
Okay.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been doing it on his iPhone back then either.
The date's
I was
right
like,
there.
I
was typing it. You had a Wacom.
He was entering it on his palm.
I had a $10,000 Wacom tablet. So that's what I use for when I'm notes in a classroom setting, when I'm doing something. When I'm in a meeting, so if I'm sitting with my church council planning out a calendar, if I'm sitting with someone planning out a worship service, I don't like to write by hand. I don't know why, I just don't. And so what I'll use is something like iThoughts, which is a mind mapping tool. So this is actually a map that I sat down with the head of our worship circle, and we mapped out our worship service for Christmas Eve, and then we were talking about what to do for Christmas Day, and we mapped out what we were doing for Christmas Day worship too. And it's nice. I mean, we color coded it to Advent, and that made me happy because I'm a nerd that way. And
let's jump back real quick just to Notability, and then I want to ask you about mind mapping.
Sure.
Notability is an iOS only app, correct?
It is iOS and Mac OS.
And Mac OS. You're right.
But it doesn't go cross platform.
Available on the App Store for
It's
$10.
It's $5 on the iOS, isn't it?
No,
or is it 10 now.
$9.99. It says.
Okay,
right.
so it's gone up.
So they jump up and down. It's often on sale for $5. So
I have it. I've just never ever used it, but I hear good things.
I like it. It's to me my handwriting's terrible, and it actually makes my handwriting seem almost legible. So that makes me happy.
That zoomed feature that you were showing, put that back up there real quick.
Certainly. Let me go back to my...
To explain what that is, because I think every handwritten note app on iOS or any platform ought to have something like this.
Right.
Awesome.
I tend to agree. Before I had my pencil, I definitely agreed. But basically what happens is I can write on the screen just like this. But if I want to have a more fine focus on the part that that I'm writing in, the Notability has this little zoom button. So there's a plus sign down in the bottom right, and I tap on that, and it brings up this little box.
But you're talking about put your cursor. I mean, I don't know if you can do it or not, but
you can see the plus sign down at the bottom right of the...
Tap it again and open it again. All right, that just popped up, and over on the right side of the toolbar of that lower third portion of his screen, you can see the magnifying glass with the plus sign in there.
Yep.
That's what he's talking about when he says hit
Yep.
the plus sign. And that opens that little window. And now that little window, now go ahead and
this
write on
window.
that.
That's where the ink is going to be put. Now I can make this bigger, so you can see down on the bottom that's almost spanning two rows now, which actually is pretty nice sometimes when you're writing with a lot of loops and whatnot. And also it makes it that I don't have to write as big. See what happens when I make the box smaller? For me to put something on the line and feel like it's going to fit, it's kind of tiny on the actual line. But if I make the box bigger, it's a little bit. It just shows up bigger because I'm taking up more of that line because it's zooming it inside that little window there.
This is a great app. I love Notability. In my opinion, it's the only note-taking app that I use for meetings or if I'm writing, if I'm handwriting. This is the only thing I use.
Yeah, I like Notes. There's an app called Notes Plus. It's just Notes and the plus sign, which I really enjoy as well. But especially with the pencil, I just think Notability works better.
Now let me share and then we're going to jump over to your mind mapping.
Sure.
This is an alternative if you're not an iOS person, if you're Android or use like a Surface tablet. This Metamoji Note is just as good, is almost as good. I still like Notability better. It feels cleaner. It feels like it's more professionally done, but it's still an excellent app, and it has that same zoomed feature and has some nice touches to it, and it's got a syncing backup system, so you can sync from your Android device to your Windows tablet, and it's in the Windows App Store if you're on the Windows side. It's also in the Google Play Store. Unfortunately, I don't think there's an iOS version.
Metamoji Note, because I'm looking for something for my Nexus 7.
Yeah, let me look here.
Back in the day, I could never find something that was like it, because I agree with you. If you're not using an active stylus, you absolutely need that zoom feature.
I don't think there's an iOS version. If there is, I didn't know about it, and so it would be the first time I've heard about it. But yeah, this is just for the Windows App Store. Windows apps, Windows Phone apps, Windows Office. Yeah, but anyway, so those are it's almost the same. Basically, what you just saw Wes do on Notability, it works kind of the same way. All right, so now jump over to your mind mapping. Rick, do you or Antoine, do either of you do mind mapping?
It would require having a mind. So I don't do any mind
let me start a new map, and I'll show you basically how this works. New map. I'll just give it with my Advent theme. Create. Oh, I gotta get it. I'm kind of cramped with my typing, so I can't do that. Test 8.
Basically, just while you're doing that, the idea of mind mapping is you're putting your ideas down in kind of a visual format using a diagram.
Yes, that's exactly it.
And you can do it freehand in an app like Metamoji Note or Notability, or they have apps that have the little boxes and circles and ovals and things like that. And that's what you're going to show us. What is this app again?
This is called iThoughts. This also has an iOS app. I don't know if it has a Mac OS app. I'm not sure if it's on any other platform. You can export it to an open standard mind map type thing. So you can pretty much anything you do in this, you can export out and open it in just about anything. This is interesting because this is not even as close as how I would have taken notes in college typing. There's actually another app that I have on my Mac that'll do that called Scapple. But this is really cool for just showing how things branch out and how ideas are connected. So if I have this as a test, and the nice thing is it's really easy to give a new, this is called a child. So the one in the front is called a parent. Then I do 0.1. And then I want to add 0.2, and it's really cool. I hit return 3 times, and it goes to 0.2. And I want to add 0.3. And then if I want to add another child for here, I hit 3 spaces and it goes ahead. And I can go as far out as I want to.
It's like a flow chart.
It's not quite a flow chart because you're not following things out. You can show relationships, and I'll show you that in a second.
It's like a sway presentation.
Okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. So then you can create relationships.
It's like a construct in accordance.
Yes, it is like a construct in accordance. You are correct.
Yes, it's basically an XML diagram with some visualizations to it.
Yeah. But this is how, when I was in college, if you were looking at how I took notes, this is close to how I did things. But so like you saw with my thing on the worship service with the Christmas Eve, that's basically how, if I need to put a lot of information in order really quick with a visual cue to it, I'll go to a mind map. So I thought is definitely the thing that I use for that. So that tends to be how my brain works.
And why would you do this over just regular note taking?
Well, for this, I can export this out, so it's a lot easier for me to get the information out without having to rewrite it or retype it. A mind map over my kind of doodle notes this has a built-in structure so that I can actually see and reorder stuff. So, if I say I'm working in a worship service and I want to reorder something, well, I can just drag it over here and put it down there, drag this, and it drags all the children down too. If you want to separate something out, so it's a slightly different idea, you can put it over on the other side. So there's visual cues that show me not only how things are related to their child elements, but how they're related to one another. And then if I need to create a new connection, I can do that
and
visually.
we should probably point out here too, Wes, that you do a good bit of diagramming scripture too, right?
No, I really don't.
Oh, I was thinking you did. I was thinking that you did that in accordance.
No,
I'm thinking of someone else.
I've looked at it a little bit, but
but I would think that your mind would be geared toward diagramming sentences.
Towards not towards sentences, but towards like I like grammatical diagrams rather than sentence structure. So I mean, not grammatical.
But a good diagram sentence shows relationship too.
Yeah, I like paragraph syntax and how like the different phrases are related rather than
you translate all your passages that you preach from.
I do. Yeah.
And for some reason, I was thinking you diagrammed them too.
No, that would be more nerdy than I'm currently am. I used to do all my Hebrew ones because Hebrew is a lot of fun to do.
Would you do a mind map while you're listening to someone else talk?
No, for that I would probably do something in Notability, kind of like when I showed you me listening to that keynote. That's something that I would do.
Okay.
I would write that because I'm that. What happens when I'm listening to someone, Kev, if I want to interpret what they're saying, is I want to interact with that. I want to put my own thoughts into it. I want to be able to easily put an aside, and I can do that in this. You tap up here and you can put a note. You can add a note to anything.
Okay. But there are
it's not as visually appealing to me.
There are a lot of preachers who do something like this, a mind map of their sermon.
Right.
Where they come up with the mind map, and a lot of them will actually bring this into the pulpit, and this is what they preach from. So they've got one page of notes that's showing all their sermon. I've never done this, but I know that there are people, and I've seen people do it, and have seen preachers who have preached the sermon. I've listened to the sermon, and then later on I found that they had mind mapped it, and so I was very interested to see something like that.
And then this is my third app, which is completely different. This is Scapel, and this is basically a non-hierarchical mind map. So there is no syntactical link to any of these elements except for the visual ones that I stick in. which means that there's no order. If I want to create a child, I just drag something and put it wherever I am. And I tend to use this when I'm making notes on how to do a process or how to explain a complex idea to somebody, to show relationships where I just want to go all over the place. And so this is me trying to explain to someone how a dynamic WordPress website would work. And so this is my third form of note taking. So I basically have 3 forms.
What's this one called?
Scapple. It's by Literature and Latte. It's the same people who make Scrivener.
How do you spell that? Scapple.
Scapple or EL. I think it's ELE.
Okay. Now, when Antoine, you were sort of jumping in when I asked that question about would you do this when you're, would you do a mind map like this when you're listening to someone else? And I know you sort of do, but it's a modified kind of mind mapping where it's more artistic. Explain what you do when you're listening to people preach. I'm going to go ahead and pull up your Flickr because I know you've got some in there.
Artistic. That's a compliment. I do the exact same thing, except I just don't rely on somebody else to draw, on some other software to draw oval circles and arrows. Hey, I know it sounds like I'm degrading my abilities a little bit there, but I'm not. I do a process called sketch notes where, as I am listening, I draw the emotion, the feelings, the instinct, the context, somewhere around the line of 2 or 3 colors worth of stuff, sometimes 20 colors of stuff, and have a product at the end. So let me go ahead and turn this around since I'm using the little the little device today, so that I can show off the big stuff. So here's my iPad Pro. This is paper, and so something similar to what Wes was doing would be this here. This is an interaction map that I put together.
And I think he froze.
Oh boy.
Well, while he's frozen, I'm trying to pull up one of his
sketch notes. Antoine does what I would do if I had any artistic talent whatsoever.
Yes. I wish I
that's
had
the
that
point.
kind of artistic ability.
These are artistic. I say they're artistic because I think they look beautiful.
Oh, they are very artistic.
You have to zoom in to such detail to be able to see exactly what he puts in.
And he makes good use of color.
Oh, it's brilliant. I mean, he's able to draw. I can't draw worth
he can express himself that way.
Mm-hmm.
I can think that way. I just can't get it from my brain to the canvas.
I need to take photographs, and that's not a very dynamic way to do things while you're in a.
I've got one up that I can bring up here. It's this is kind of what it looks like, and this one isn't as artistic, although it is somewhat.
It really kind of is.
Yeah.
See, it's very colorful. But these are the notes. There he is. He's back. I'm showing your notes from Converge SE.
Oh, cool. Yeah, those were a decent set of notes. Yeah, so I mean, I just take a series of colors and the emotion of the room, and I start writing whatever people are doing. I mean, that's a sketch note, though. The listener is kind of compelled to take in the emotion of what's happening. Find a piece of empathy, if you will.
On the screen here? Can you kind of explain your method here?
No, I don't know how to explain it. I just draw.
Okay. So there's no real organization that anyone could conceive, because it looks like it's organized by color.
Nah. Let me see. Let me see. Internet of Things.
I mean, there's a general flow to it too. You know how to.
Literally speaking, I just pick a color and keep going.
Like product is design, and then all of this stuff seems to flow out of that. Is that right? Am I right when I say that?
Yeah, I mean, I just no, sir. I mean, there is no method to the madness. I don't have a schema that I use or a behavior. I really just draw.
So
it doesn't really help.
To to somebody, let's say, we all said, Antoine, we're going to hire you to teach us to do this. Is there anything, what would you say? How would you structure that class?
I wouldn't know how to.
Okay.
Antoine,
Antoine, it's intentionally personal what you do.
I don't know how to. I mean, I don't know how to teach somebody to say draw what you're listening to. I don't. It's been something I've been asked, but I don't know how to do that.
You could take any of those charts, Antoine, though, and blow them up really big, like take them to Kinko somewhere, get them really big, put them up on your wall, and when people visited you, they think you were crazy.
Well, you should see the three white.
It's like a madman's lair with all of these, put some red yarn between
I have 3
different
whiteboards that look like that actually. So
no,
you're not that far off.
Your stuff is beautiful. If you go back and watch the part where you disappeared, you'd hear us all proclaiming how artistic you are.
No, I appreciate it. I mean, I do stuff because I have to do stuff professionally. So you have stuff like this. Here's paper on iOS. This is as close to a mind map as I will get. I was actually creating a scenario, but I was not a part of the conversation. I was the guy sitting in the back of the room, listening to people. So as I'm listening to them, I'm writing notes. While I'm writing notes, I'm drawing. And everything that you see here is literally the flow diagram. I even went down as far as making little asset elements that I repeated across the entire time.
What app did you say that was?
This is paper.
Okay, I didn't know paper would do that kind of thing.
Paper does shapes?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
You can draw a shape too, can't you?
I drew everything.
You can draw anything you want, but does it automatically like if I drew a square, it would not be a square or a rectangle?
Well, so you have
to straighten it up.
Yeah. So in paper, let me see, because you guys are looking at my screen and I don't have my stylus out. But this is the tool all the way down here. So you've got a series of tools at the bottom page, series of tools and colors, and right next to the eraser, there you go, is a neat little tool that when you would do.
Oh, look at that!
Square or a triangle.
I needed that in 3rd grade.
So you have
triangle.
Yeah, you got that kind of thing. So I mean, paper does that, but like you guys said, I mean, obviously I get stuff like this where my notes, start looking like this, and they're great for me. Sometimes to the people that were present, it triggers some things for them as well. But for the most part, when it comes to notes, I'm kind of a combination of all 3 methods that Wes just talked about. Mm-hmm. I listen for whatever's going to stick, and if it comes out as a bunch of lines with arrows, then it's lines with arrows. If it's got some text in it, then it's got some text in it.
Well, I think my sister's friend, Mike Rode. Rode, is it?
Yeah, Mike Rode. Yeah.
Rode.
I've been doing this just about as long as he has, as a matter of fact.
And he does sort of the same thing. These are some, notes from that he's taken. These aren't as nice. She posts every Sunday. She posts her pastor's sermon.
Yeah,
I just lost
That's
it.
Great. No, that's great. See, to me, that's the best way to take notes, personal notes anyway. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody talks about being digital and not being able to draw in the margins, and highlight and all that fun stuff. But when you can go back to grade school where you were told to stop drawing in your copybooks and literally start drawing your notes, you do unlock stuff that's not, as easily contained in an outline.
Well, because it's not only just the immersion of the room, it's your interaction with the material. And that's one of the things, like, when I think we do a lot of folks a disservice, we say, well, just outline it. Well, outlines are great to give you basic structure and stuff, but there's, like Antoine's saying, there's no way you can really interject your own thoughts or concepts or even visually tie different ideas together. So one of the things that I noticed even when I was in college is when I was taking my notes with all my little boxes and arrows, which would drive my friends crazy when they tried to buy it or borrow them, is that I would make connections in the notes just by visually drawing dotted lines to one another that the professor teaching the lecture didn't necessarily intend to make. For the professor, it was just instinctual that these things would go together, but he wasn't highlighting the fact that these 2 points went together, because it just, for them, it was just normal. And if I was just outlining it, I would have never been able to see that. But with the visual cue, I can put stuff in, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, outlines, you know, static. Well, I'll say static, but logical outlines. They're great. You know, I did. Actually, I should probably show it this way. Let me swing this back around to paper. So I did a talk for recruiters, actually teaching recruiters how to talk to user experience professionals, because that's just difficult for them. And so this was the the setup in paper. I drew all of the slides out. You know, myself and other gentlemen I worked with, we did that. But I did an outline in an application, web app called Fargo. Dave Weiner, the guy who invented RSS, created an outliner called Fargo, and it's just an outliner. It exports into XML. It sits in your Dropbox account, but it's logical. And, you know, for those folks that need that logical point to point to point to point, you know, with the appropriate metadata on each line, there's not really much better than Fargo. It really is great. And then it's, you know, it's the best part of, it's not just open source, it's really an open web app. So,
yeah,
you know, it leans against the browser and your Dropbox connection. You can use it on your phone, on tablet. There's nothing to install. You can collaborate and share with anybody. I mean, you can build a whole presentation deck from it, you know, with controls, you know, if you want to go that far. But you've got a linear outline that, you know, for some people, this works really well. So when I did that talk,
you just said the word, it's linear. And that's the limitation, because outlines are great for, like, I use them for my writing, but it's linear. I mean, you're going from point A to point B. There's no looping back and going through. Your visual notes can do that. You can draw a line.
You can do some looping in a linear outline, which is actually pretty neat. In this one, and I'll use Fargo as a decent example. Hyperlinks is the key. You know, that's the way to get the looping done.
But there's still
you just have to remember your schema.
Visual cue to where it links. Because, like, in your sketch notes, you could clone an image from one section and put it into another section, and now there's a visual cue that these two things are related, or draw an arrow between the two, and that's something you can't do in a linear outline.
Yeah.
Rick, what's your favorite way of taking notes when you're either in a class, or, I mean, you've been recently a student, or when you're listening to your preacher on Sunday? Or
let me take a historical sidebar for a moment, if that's okay. I'll keep it short. Back in the 1800s, when I was in college, this was really, I mean, computers around, and I actually even had one, but they weren't all that practical, and no one had a laptop. Back when we were, because we probably should back up. The reason we take notes is because we want to remember something, and our brains aren't perfect enough to, unless you're one of these people with complete recall, our brains aren't, able to just bring everything back up, and that's why we write notes. And one thing I discovered when I was in college was, you always hear people talk about how your memory is like a muscle. And I found that to be very true. Anyone who's known me in the last 20 years or so probably wouldn't believe this, but when I was in high school and college, I used to do a lot of drama. I used to be in a couple of plays and a musical, probably every year, if not more. And one thing I discovered was I would try to get into some kind of production to where we would be not quite to, by finals week, we wouldn't be quite at the, when we're actually putting it on, but we would be deep into rehearsals. Because what I discovered is that I could remember my notes just perfectly when I was memorizing lines. I remember sitting, when I first discovered this, I was sitting in an American history class in college, and I could visualize entire notes on the page. I mean, it was amazing. I don't have this kind of memory normally, but I mean, I could turn pages in my head. I could read the lines. It was, I felt like I was cheating, because it was like I was able to see my notes. And then, something else that I did when I was getting my MDiv in seminary is, I did have a computer, back in my apartment, but again, laptops were kind of a luxury when I started out. So what I would do is I would take my notes by hand, and then I would come back to my computer and I would type up those notes. And I would even use programs like Corel Draw, because that was something affordable back in the day, to recreate the drawings that I had in my notebook that the professor had maybe put on a overhead transparency or on the board or something like that. But that was another good memory tool too, because I was reinforcing that information. I think a lot of what we do now is, because I'm not sitting in classes taking those kinds of notes where I'm going to be tested on it tomorrow. I don't ever reinforce what I take notes on. I just use it so that I can do a search and find it quickly. But that was a good reinforcement, to take it by hand and then go and transcribe it. That really helped a lot. And I just thought I would mention that, because I think that sometimes we kind of forget why we take notes, and we forget good ways of bringing that back to recall, the information that we need. And we depend upon our computers and our tablets, and sometimes too much. We think, well, I just search for it. And even if you're doing drawings, Evernote can even, if you've got text on there, it can even OCR the text that's in a drawing, and you can search for things like that. So anyway, to bring that back up to these kinds of discussions of what we're doing today, I'll come out of the sidebar. I use Evernote a lot for what I'm doing. If I just need to write, take some quick notes on something, that's what I'll do. I do have one of those. I don't think I have one right here with me, but I have Moleskine. Is that the correct name, right? We all say Moleskine. I have one of the. I was looking. Oh, look, here it is.
The ones you can take the pictures of and I'll throw it to Evernote.
I've got one right here, and so
you can do that with all of them. It's built into Evernote's base software now. You don't need.
It is now, but these were actually designed to where Evernote would pick up what kind of journal it was.
When like the micro dots on
and you can and you can put different tabs that mean different things on them and things. So there have been times where I would take notes in this, and then I would then I would just take a picture of it with my phone and put it right into Evernote. And again, if I've taken the time, you talk about your bad handwriting, Wes, because you're left-handed. I was born left-handed, and they made me right-handed. So you can imagine how bad my handwriting is.
You poor.
But if I slow down, and it's another reason too why I use when I do write by hand, I'll use a fountain pen, because that slows me down as well. If I slow down enough to write legibly, the Evernote works pretty well in OCRing it. Now, I will say, if I'm sitting in a church setting taking notes, most of the time I'll just type it, but that works well for me too. I think I mentioned to y'all earlier, before the show, I've been playing a little bit with Apple Notes, because you always feel like you're missing out on something. Like I even see some of the stuff with Notability, and I think I ought to be using Notability, but I don't know if I have the talent to use Notability. But anyway, I've been using Apple Notes some, because I thought, well, maybe I'm missing out on something there. And Apple Notes is much better than it used to be. I'm not so concerned about not being able to access it on non-Apple platforms, because you can do it from iCloud.com now. But it still doesn't have some of those things that Evernote has. Like today was, in our Slack group, wasn't it? It was LaRosa, right? Who had he was able to share his Evernote page, and it went to the web. You can create what I call a quick and dirty web page by taking your Evernote notes and sharing it as a link, and it's a web page, that someone can go to. The ability that's not there in Evernote, although this is in OneNote, to take your camera and to have the document scanner built in, to where one of the things that Evernote does with this is it flattens it down to where I've got dark text on a light color, regardless of what color of ink that I've got in my pen. It makes that a flat, matte looking image. Apple Notes doesn't have that yet. One thing I do, like if I go to the doctor and I get some prescriptions, before I turn those prescriptions into the pharmacist, I always use Evernote to take a picture of that prescription so that I have a record of it. And again, it puts it right there, and that's really handy. So there's a lot of little features like that Evernote does that I don't always see that. I haven't investigated all the note-taking programs, but I know that Apple Notes doesn't do all that. OneNote will do some of that, but my big issue with OneNote is it's not as quick to get around between OneNote and between a particular note, I should say, and another, or sometimes it has to load, and it loads slower. At least the last I try it out every few months, and sometimes I'll have a particular project, or I'll go a week and I'll use OneNote, or I've been doing that the last 2 weeks with Apple Notes, but I've yet to find something I like better. One other notes that I use a good bit, and this, I'm not meaning to make a shameless accordance plug here, but I do use the notes in accordance quite a good bit, especially if it's on a particular biblical passage. If I'm sitting in a sermon and there's something profound that's said on a particular passage, I will open up notes in Evernote. Open up notes in accordance and put it there. It syncs between my devices. I've got that. I've got that to where I can find it later. And any scriptural notes, any Bible notes, I do in accordance. Because
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, because I want that available with that. With that passage. And so I would say probably my two primary note-taking programs that I use are Evernote and Accordance.
You see, I've got
I would have to almost mirror all the
version of it for Windows, just because I'm sort of moving over to Windows, and I don't use OneNote, but it's there and it's free, so we should mention it as a option.
Absolutely.
For people who are on Windows, and if you get started with it and learn it, it can become a powerful tool, and then eventually you can graduate to the full-fledged OneNote app, which I'll pull up here in a second. I don't even have it installed. It's installed, but I don't have it.
Is there feature parity between the two? Because for a while, there were some neat little things you could do in the
Windows 10 app.
Yeah, that you couldn't do in the desktop app, and vice versa. There were features, but it kind of went both ways.
I don't know.
My son uses it at school, and that's how he takes his notes. And
I don't know how similar they are. I just don't use it. I tried using it for a while, and I just never.
I would see an advantage of it, being able to do both drawings and text together very quickly, very easily. Again, it's the quick accessibility of exactly the note that I'm looking for that I never can find things quickly in it because I've even done the thing where I import everything from Evernote into it so that I'm not so that I'm not having to have two programs open at a time, but it still doesn't work as
if you're using it for everything, I can see it would just get annoying.
It's actually a really nice program. It's just I just prefer Notability on my iPad with my Apple Pencil. Speaking of Apple Pencil, what other before the Apple Pencil came along, or if you're not using an iPad Pro, what would you recommend that people use? Antoine, I'm going to ask you that first because I know that you've got a favorite.
You mean in terms of stylus is what you're asking?
Yeah, what tool would you use for taking notes if you didn't use an Apple Pencil all the time?
I'd use any tablet.
No, your stylus. What stylus?
The stylus. What stylus would you use?
Stylus. I used 53s. So the folks that made paper, I like the weight of that style. I liked the weight of that stylus. I actually just finished selling my iPad Mini, and the pencil along with it. The 53 pencil along with it. But the 53 pencil, I found that as being probably one of the better weighted styli that you could probably have. I know a Donut Jot stylus, a lot of folks like that, but that feels like a little twig that you're ready to throw away, step on, it blows away with the wind. But the pencil, really good weight. It's a carpenter's pencil, you know, to those folks who've taken a good carpentry class when they were younger, or you know, have kids in school right now. They've actually gone back to using those really cool big pencils. But the carpenter's pencil style is really neat. The only downside for the 53 stylus is the pen tips are of crazy. They can be the rubber can wear fairly quickly, and it's $15 for a couple of replacements. You know, so that's something that every 3 months I was changing my pen tip. You know, so that became a little bit of an added cost when it came to using that.
If it wasn't at cost though, which would you prefer, the 53 pencil or the Apple Pencil?
If they both acted exactly the same, I should preface that, and because they don't. Obviously, Apple's tuned their pencil for the Pro, but if they acted exactly the same, 53's pencil is a heavier. It feels more like a pencil, even though it's got the bigger tip, the blunt tip. You get a little bit better feeling of control with that than you do with the toothpick pencil.
How well does this work? You see where I'm showing kiss to pair?
Oh, the kiss to pair is easy peasy.
Is it? That's pretty neat. I didn't know that it did that.
Yeah, that's press and hold for 3 seconds, and it's good to go. 53 has an API, so for apps like Notability, Notes Plus, everything in Adobe Creative Suite, the 53 pencil works with those. Rejection or pressure sensitivity and the eraser, a few other pieces in there. So, you know, it's very well featured. It's a decent stylus. There's just really not much about it that's a bad thing, you know, really, except for if you were like me. I mean, I use mine 8 hours a day, every day. So in 2 to 3 months, I was putting a new tip on.
By the way, I'm going to put this link in our the notes over at theotek.com, because this list of notes apps and drawing apps is just a great list of note and drawing apps, regardless of whether you're using the 53 pencil or not. I mean, look at all these. The Adobe Illustrator Draw is a good tool. Photoshop Sketch is a neat tool. I've never used this one, but Concepts is a good tool. PicArt Photo Studio.
Concepts is amazing. Oh man, Concepts is absolutely amazing.
Procreate,
that
awesome
list
tool.
Those are apps that
I love
getting
Procreate.
attention. Those apps get good attention from their respective developers. It's not to say that other apps don't, but you know, for a Notes app to add an API for a stylus or several styli, as you know, you'll see with the Adobe and Note Shelf and a few others, that's a good sign, you know, that you can go across different devices with those.
Now you mentioned the Adonit styli. I personally love using a couple of these are really great. I don't like these with the plastic disc. I hate those.
Before they created their active stylus, yeah.
Yeah, but the Dash, the Snap, and the Pixel.
I have the Jot.
Yeah, the Jot Snap and the Jot Pixel are probably two of the best. And of course they're Bluetooth. You have to pair them by Bluetooth. But I'm currently reviewing the Snap right now, and I really like it. It's actually got a magnet in it, and it comes with a little magnetic strip that you can snap to the side or back of your iPhone case if you want to, and it's cheap. It's only $35, and it will also you can use it to snap photos with your iPhone or Android camera. So you can put your camera on a tripod and use the button on the side of it to snap a photo. So those are my favorites.
They went with the same design that 53 went with, the Carpenter pencil design. That's interesting.
Yeah, it does have that. I think it's more, in their case, it's more so that it fits nice and flat on the back of your case when you use that little magnet. But still, it works well. I will be giving it a very positive review. The price alone makes it a really great option. So
No
that's
palm
what I want.
rejection.
But all of us agree the Apple Pencil's the best, right, for the iOS.
I haven't used any other active styluses.
I like it.
I like it.
I like it better than the Jot that I was just talking about. The Jot was always so noisy to me, but I had one of the older ones with the metal, the metal ball on the
disc.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the early
no, it
ones
wasn't the
were-
disc. It was but it was just it was a metal tip that just made so much noise. You
Use the
couldn't
one
take
that-
notes in a quiet place.
Was it the Evernote branded version?
Probably.
Yeah, that actually was a terrible stylus by comparison.
Kevin, I don't know. I mean, I've used the Pixel. I've used a few of the other Adonit ones. I've used 53s. I've used the really crappy ones. And then I have Apple's Pencil. It's really going to boil down to how somebody feels about a pen. Some people like big pens. Other people like, a Mont Blanc. The Apple Pencil. Yeah, is this good? It is. It's really good. The tuning that Apple has done to it. The rejection. The fact that it really doesn't need any additional software. It's really kind of both the Pencil and the iPad Pro. That's great. But if you don't have an iPad Pro, the Apple Pencil is a non-starter. The 53 or the Pixel, and I'm guessing probably the Snap, those will probably be really competitive, if not even better. Than.
Let me throw this question out for all three of you. Let's say I've got an iPad 2 or a second generation mini like you had, Antoine, and I've decided, you know what, I really want to upgrade my iPad and I do a lot of note taking. Is it worth paying the extra for the more expensive iPad Pro 9.7 inch or 12.9 inch and the Apple Pencil? If you're a moderate note taking person and that's all you do, you're not an artist, you're not gonna put a case on it with a keyboard and type.
Yeah.
You use your iPad to watch movies and get online and to take notes. And the only reason you ever use the pencil is to take notes. Is it worth the extra expense?
The one thing I would say is that what Antoine pointed out is it takes the thought out of it. I don't have to worry about what app I'm getting, if the API has been put in, or that sort of thing. So for me, like I always mention Miss Peg, but we just got her an iPad Air 2. And now that I'm using this and I'm watching her use her old nub stylus, I'm going, now I wish we would have actually figured out a way to raise her money to get her the 9.7 inch Pro and the Pencil, because it would have worked much better for her. Because it takes the thought out of it. There's no question as to whether or not it worked, because she uses Notability. She would have been able to write in that just fine, but it would have worked throughout the entire OS. The pairing's really easy, and palm rejection's built in, so she wouldn't have to think. And I'm thinking for someone like her, that can be really beneficial. If you're an artist like Antoine and you really want a nice hefty weight to what you're doing, I can see someone saying that you don't necessarily want to go with this.
There's no weight to this thing. I mean, adding the cozy on the back has been like marvelous, because it's like doubled the weight.
You had the pen clip too? I got a pen clip.
I didn't get the pen clip. I'm debating whether La Rosa and I think Rick both had the little sleeve that went over it.
No, I don't. If you just said Rick, I don't.
Oh, you don't have it? Okay.
No.
I know La Rosa has the sleeve, that adds a little bit of weight. I think Apple's Pencil is excellent. It's pricey though. It's $100 stylus, and I found the tip very hard to wear down. They give you an extra one in the box, but that's something.
I have no idea where I put that.
Actually, I keep mine in my box, in my little bag. And honestly, I'm a bit of a special case. I bought my iPad Pro to draw on it for 8 to 10 hours a day. And so, I definitely pushed Stylize pretty far. The 53 pencil I didn't get tired of. My hand didn't get tired of holding a carpenter's pencil all day. You know, that's a good feeling. You know, it's heavy enough, it's wide enough that it feels good. It doesn't have as fine enough a point. You know, the Adonit one, I know a few folks that have the Pixel stylus, and they really love it because it feels like a decent ink pen, decent big Faber-Castell, Fisher kind of pen. To me, it's too light, but the pen tip, you know, it's the size of a medium, a ballpoint medium pen, and that's beautiful.
Well,
beautiful feeling.
Let's. Sorry to interrupt you, but we're sort of running late on time. Let's just shift real quickly, and we don't have but maybe a minute or two. For note taking when you're doing sermon and Bible study prep, first question, yes or no answer. Do you use the note taking feature inside your chosen Bible software?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you ever use other tools for when you're doing Bible study and sermon preparation? Do you ever take notes
Yep.
in another something else besides that?
Yep.
And what do you use it? Just the name of it real quick.
I use
Paper.
I use Apple Notes.
Okay, Apple Notes. Rick?
Evernote.
Evernote. Antoine?
Pen Ultimate or paper.
Okay, so you're drawing your notes for it. Okay.
No, I'm writing an outline.
Well, that's what I mean. As I said draw, I meant write, but that's what I intended to say, as opposed to typing them on your iPad. Okay. I think it's I wanted us to spend a little more time talking about, you know, note features, and I figured, you know, we'd give Rick a chance to show off the notes and accordance, and I'd pull up word search and Logos, because those are kind of the big three, along with BibleWorks right now in Bible study, but and Olive Tree. But don't forget those, because I think they're really great tools, and it puts your notes inside your Bible software, which then you can search them and find them. And later on, if you preach, I know Wes is probably the kind of guy, he's so organized, he never preaches on the same passage twice, right? I'm kidding about that, by the way. But
No,
you've done that.
I intentionally do that.
You do that, you come back to that sermon, that passage that you want to preach it maybe with a different bent or a different emphasis or a different application, or you look at your old notes and go, boy, I was stupid. That's not what this passage is saying at all. But anyway, there it is. And it's
yes,
really
there's times where you're preparing your next sermon, you realize you have to repent for your last one.
Yeah.
So
that happens to me more often than I like to admit. But anyway, so remember that, and maybe we'll spend a whole show on tips for taking notes while sermon prep. That might be a good idea to do that. This has been good. Just real quick, Antoine, last week, was that on Saturday morning? I think we did a Theotek extra with you about CES.
Yep.
And so I'm going to post the YouTube video in the link in the page about this episode. So there'll be 2 YouTube videos on that one. I'm not going to put that out as on audio. If it's an extra, you got to come and do a little work to get the extras. But so guys, make sure you go and watch that. It's probably in the list of videos if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're not, just go to theotek.com and you'll be able to find that. Just real quick, give us a headline about CES 2017 for those that didn't see our extra.
For those that didn't see, post mobile computers for consumers. That's probably the best headline. So
all right, now explain the headline.
Things, drones and all that stuff. Post mobile computers for consumers. That's probably the best headline.
Explain it. What do you mean by that? Just in a sentence or two.
You know, I mean, CES is always about, you know, the things that are to come, and this show was about automation, drones, AI, smart clothing, a god awful ton of robots, you know, smart ear stuff, wearables out the wazoo. You know, aside from the automotive and the TVs and the computer mobile stuff, but it was really about that stuff that's coming next.
Okay,
which was pretty cool.
Well, I'll just shameless self-promotion. Go to notebooks.com and you'll find a bunch of posts that I helped write, some of which I wrote, some of which others wrote about. There were actually, I think, some really cool PCs that were released or announced this year. So we had this discussion. If you want to watch Wes and Antoine gang up on me for saying that the PC was interesting again at CES, then you can
I
go
didn't have anything problem with you saying
Yeah,
that.
you did. You made me feel terrible. I went home and I got off the show and cried all the rest of the afternoon.
Oh, good grief.
That's what I tell you, Packers fans
needed-
are so emotional.
I needed to get a dog to help me feel better. So anyway, need to pet some puppies. No, guys, it's been fun. Thanks for being with us tonight, and thanks for watching. For those of you who were and are watching, and please come and see us. You can follow us on Twitter at Theotek Podcast. That's TheOtek Podcast. Send us notes. Send us email at Kevin@kevinpurcell.com.org rather. If you want to do that, don't do .com. That doesn't work. Anyway, I've been trying to get that domain back. I used to have it and lost it. Thanks to GoDaddy. I'm not a fan. And anyway, but we appreciate you guys sticking with us. And we'll be back hopefully next week with something new. So signing off.
See ya.
Bye.